our flagship event. Hi everyone, I'm Nikhil, that's Saurabh. Let's kick this off. Can we have the first? Yeah, so we promised that there were not going to be any presentations, but we needed something. Because, so we like to break the mold, even if it is staying in the mold. So just a little guideline, you all have these little pamphlets, zines, what we call them, on the table. This is going to be your handbook for the presentation of sorts, but that's what we have, right? So, can we get the first? So I have a question. There's going to be a very stringy thing that comes on screen. Show of hands if we can actually get what that is. Oh, okay. Right. Yes. Big stringy thing. Anybody know what this is? Anyone guess? Maybe someone from the pharmaceutical world? Protein? Yes. That's actually right. This is basically a set of amino acids put together. It's a plant. It's a disease-resistant plant protein. What's significant about this? What's significant about this? Why are we talking about this in a deep tech event?
AI design.
Exactly. So it's basically been designed using Google's DeepMind by AlphaFold. Now this is even more significant because this was done in just a few hours. Typically, to design any protein fold, it would take months and months of effort. There's a massive experimental setup that they would have. But AI has been able to do this just in a few hours. So much so that the complexity of even up to 5,000 amino acids, which is massive in this world, they've been able to do that. And they've been able to map every single known human or animal protein and plant protein known to man. So what used to take days and months and years to do for a single protein, they've been able to do it for every known protein. And all with the power of AI. There are many other such examples. If you open your book, you'll be able to see a few that we've charted. Coca-Cola. They have always been a tech-forward company. What did they do? They came up with a new flavor looking at data. They looked at data about how people were actually experimenting with flavors and what they wanted, and they found cherry Sprite to be a viable flavor. And that's in the markets today, all designed from the AI. Stratting by Oak Ridge Automobiles designed a full EV vehicle and 3D printed it in 44 hours. Imagine what you can do with the chain. Boeing has changed the whole spectrum of what we can do. They have now changed the way we are actually going to be fixing our supply chain for improvements by using 3D printing to do rather additive manufacturing to fix any new projects or any new problems that they have within their helicopter division. Now, why these are all essential is that this has not just happened in the last year. These examples are over a 10 years period. And over the last 10 years, the movement has been slow. We've just not been hearing about it till GPT blew up last year in November. And now the world is taking notice. Over to you, sir.
Absolutely. This is something which is striking all of our thoughts as in terms of really what really AI is capable of. But okay, let me just take a step back and I would just request you to come onto this page of your zine. Now, here within the zines, you would see right in the middle, you have a fantastic graph which is depicting the entire overall journey that IT had. Something that you can easily think around in the 1980s, we had the PCs which came into picture. Slowly, steadily, mobile computing came in, and then in the last decade, we saw the cloud computing taking into action, and that took the center stage, and everybody was talking about how can they go on cloud. Absolutely, yes. Right now, as well, many companies are actually in the phase of picking up onto these cloud solutions and scaling. But at the same time, if we see the entire decade, the coming one, from 2020, it's a deep tech. But okay, even before moving in that space, we see that the time before was something where you see that the entire space that the world had. It's been eaten up by software. It was software which was really working around. And now, from 2020 onwards, you see, generative AI picking up, creative AI picking up, and people are making their own creative content, coming up with pictures and all. So what's really happening? So now you don't really need a software. Say for example, you have generative AI with ChatGPT. We are making, our own content. Pictures are being created right out of text. We really don't need a software. So this is a kind of a space where now deep tech is eating into, the software world. So what really we are seeing is, a kind of a force which can actually move into that entire space where you have these kinds of wicked problems like climate change, crimes, which can easily be now, we can do a lot more to contain them. Yes, these are difficult ones to be handled, to be honest, but that's why they're called wicked. But yes, now this entire space is something which is being catered by the kinds of small, very focused organizations which is like startups that we have, the entire ecosystem which is coming into the picture, and that's what is actually handling the entire load right now and picking about to the different types of use cases that you see. And absolutely, this also comes into a new shift that we see within the entire talent management, a kind of a paradigm shift. There was a time when engineering colleges were churning out computer science engineers. I am an electronics and telecom engineer myself, but now the companies, when they go for talent, they absolutely ask for a lawyer who has a capability of understanding, doing things around with AI. So it's altogether a kind of a paradigm shift. Now, what really does this really depict into? It's a kind of a movement. That's why we call that deep tech is a movement. Like what you had, from the Stone Age to Industrial Revolution, so forth. So this is another movement which is coming. How does this movement? So if I could just request you to quickly move on to the next one. That's the overall market size that we are looking at. Today, it's $1 billion, industry. Very soon, with the deep tech technologies, which can easily be, say, AI, ML, IoT, blockchain, and all of them, they collectively come into this entire umbrella of deep tech, which can easily be of the size of almost like $7 trillion US in the coming 10 years, which is like 2020, 33. And absolutely, the components, it's quite very visible that AI is contributing heavily there. But yes, quantum computing could also pick up very soon, though we haven't captured it over here. But it's a very strong contender there. But yeah, that's how things are around right now for us. And I would also like to let you know something which is from our research is what we have found out that very soon there would be a time by 2025, AI itself would be generating, almost equivalent of around like $500 billion US of GDP, which will be contributed to India. So that's the kind of a potential that we're talking about here.
So we move on. AI is going to basically move companies into a productivity gain which you've never seen before. And these are going to impact a bunch of vectors that we designed, right? The vectors right here. If you look to the left, the vectors basically improve along reducing your costs, providing opportunities for growth, identifying your risks from within your data. To give you an example of this, a company which was actually using what was used to test toxicology of drugs, they were able to churn out 40,000 different toxins which can be created, and it became such a big thing that FBI had to take over the whole list. But it is a really massive change that AI can bring to identify what your risks are. Then AI can also help you, or rather the whole deep tech enterprise, which is AI, IoT, and big data, can help you become a data-first enterprise. Supercharging your data into the new world becomes really essential. Making your data very actionable becomes really essential. And finally, we are getting into sustainability. Sustainability is the core of what many companies are working on. It's become the fundamental agenda for so many companies. But all these would be moved without having a user experience where the customers and the users can actually use these technologies. It is affordable, viable, feasible. It's a term which we use internally for a checklist or viable, affordable, and desirable. So that's why we talk about humanization. But all this can then, in an organization, be put on the path for continued and sustained growth by building a culture of innovation, which is where a lot of the soft power comes into play. Now we look at the deep tech on three different verticals. A competitive technology advantage, which is basically all the tech that exists, but on its own it doesn't make a difference. What makes a difference is how that remains sustainable. And sustainable not just on your ESG parameters, but sustainable on the three vertices, the viability, desirability, and feasibility of these technologies. And finally, AI is nothing without empathy, without having a user experience that is pleasurable, that is easier to use, that is accessible to all. That's where we can actually reach scale rather than focusing on growth. You're not putting $1 to grow 1 rupee, you're putting $1. You're putting in $1 to get 10. The kind of impacts AI can actually have is pretty immense. But the problems that it's trying to solve is not typically what IT has traditionally solved. That's where the wicked problems come in. So whether it's climate change, food distribution, digital twinning of entire ecosystems, hyper-personalization, what I call N equal to 1, and advanced systems, advanced material development. Just recently, a week back, we got a report that using complex AI models, they've been able to design 6,000 different minerals just from chemical compositions. The impact on material sciences is immense from that. All right, now we flip over the book and break the rule of slides once again. What we have done is actually created a small benchmark for different industries. This is where we would actually want you to spend some time to go through what this benchmark really means. But let me tell you how to read this, right? We've taken 6 different industries, which is the professional services, automotive and manufacturing, finance, F&B, retail, and pharma. And we have analyzed them on 4 different verticals, which is your business capabilities, that means the kind of work that you do, the business functions within each organization, the technology adoption across countries, and the geographical impact, right? So these become really essential for us. What this means is that professional services, for example, when you're looking at the digital side of things, the business capabilities of the digital side are quite immense. So that's why they'll be colored very high. Whereas if you're looking at finance marketing, you'll have somewhat of a more high impact of AI and deep tech, but not always that heavy or game changing. It can be game changing, for instance, for finance and knowledge work. So that becomes really that becomes a very, very deep impact, because now you'll be able to do a lot of your financial analysis. You're not dependent on derived information, you're dependent on real-time access to knowledge and actionable time. So I request you to spend at least 10-20 seconds to go through this. We've got a small error in the slide. The geographical impact of the technology adoption should have been switched. Apologies for that. But the rest of it is holds good.
Yep, absolutely. I'll just take another 10 seconds, pause. Just wanted to let people go through this entire, the kind of a benchmark that we have created. It's a very, very impactful. It gives you one single view for your industry, how really things really look like. Yeah. Are we good? Okay, that's great. Thanks, Nikhil. Okay, so now let me ask you to look onto the next part of the zine that we have. Here, I would like you to start thinking in a very different manner. As like, I would like you to rethink in the way how you perceive these technologies as compared to the other existing technologies that we are making use of. Now, if I actually refer back to the Gartner's base layered architecture, say they have actually defined these systems into 3 layers. You may just visualize it in a way that we have our Earth, which has the core right at the bottom, then we have mantle, and then the crust. So it's the crust which has the highest of the movements and all the kind of an impact that happens to the crust. So that's where, in a similar fashion, they have mentioned that at the bottom we have the system of records. These are the system of records that we potentially are the legacy systems and the hardcore ERP systems that we have that have a kind of a life cycle of around like close to 10 years. As you move ahead, then on top of them you have a system of differentiation that actually helps you understanding more better nitty-gritties, and they start adding some value for you like CRM. They have a kind of a life cycle of around like 5 years, and right on top of it is the system of innovation, which has a shorter life cycle that ways, but the kind of an impact that it brings on to the business is tremendous. And that's how I want to really bring in your kind of a thought process, as in what are we saying here is that this function, which is the deep tech that we're talking about, is a kind of a system that we have to really move it away from the existing IT systems that we have. The reason why I say that, if I bring your attention onto the hockey stick graph that we have now, like you must have actually heard me saying, in the previous portion where I was saying that around like it's going to be another $7 to $10 trillion business in the coming 10 years of time. Let me tell you, the same size of business IT has reached over the period of 40 years. So absolutely, yes, there are reasons why IT took this much of time, because we required infrastructure, we needed regulations and all of it, and it took some time. So that's why. But it is altogether a very different space that we have to really think of. Now, what really does this depict into? This depicts into that by 2033, IT would be deep tech would be absolutely of the size what IT would have the kind of an IT spends that they have over these 10 years of time. Now, this really actually calls out for a very clear distinction within the organizations and institutions that we have, where we start identifying deep tech more as a separate function rather than IT, because this is more driven by the business. Sometime back, I was speaking with Gaurav, and he happened to mention that it's something got to do with IT. So that's the kind of an answer. This is more a business-driven initiative, and hence it requires a separate leadership focus, a separate team that actually runs this. So a chief of innovation, a chief of deep tech would soon be a kind of a function that's that all of our organizations would start looking into. Now, if I would really bring on to one very important portion, which really, one very important portion, as in like how really do you get into that entire space? So if I would request you to move ahead into the zine, that's where we have created a kind of an overall maturity model, how really industry is moving into this. They are, we've divided it into 5 levels. These levels are just like an any other maturity model. We have an entire space where industry institutions and all, they are skeptical but they are interested. They move into that entire space after exploring upon on what are the options that they have. That's where the outcomes start coming in, and then the system would have a kind of a respect, and that's where you start moving in the space of ad hoc systems and all of it, and very well with the system with the kind of a value that it starts driving, and that's where you start bringing it more into your business function, and then it starts becoming more on the experimental side, and so on and so forth. It actually grows. This is more on the system side, but if you see what really goes around on the data side, absolutely, at times many of our industries, be it the manufacturing or yes, finance as well, they also run out of ideas, as in terms of I have the data, I really do not know. So we have structured and unstructured data, we start looking on to them. And that's where, when we have these kinds of solutions, it actually gives you that kind of a leeway where you move from level 1 to level 3, and you start analyzing, and you start implementing the outcomes into your organization. A very different space that you can very soon start seeing where companies would soon be in the level 3 in the coming 2 to 3 years of time. Now, the entire reason behind this is before you feel left out, as in terms of, okay, I have started my investments, okay, I'm already thinking about something. But yes, that also goes in a similar fashion where initially you might not really have budgets. You might have budgets for certain other things, but the outcomes are so substantial, so significant, where you start bringing in your investments in this direction, and slowly and steadily you have that kind of a culture building up in the organization. And yes, it's the business function, and hence this is why we see all of you here, because this is more a kind of a system that has been driven by the business. That's a quick one there.
So just to round up the whole conversation, it's well and good for us to say that deep tech is the next best thing and you should be taking deep tech, but how? Are you going to build everything in-house? It's just going to take years and years to get that capability, and then you're behind the market. So the best strategy, we believe, is to actually look at the ecosystem for partnerships. And it's not just us. Even the big tech firms are themselves not building everything. Building everything in-house is it's a slightly more archaic way to look at innovation, but we do need, we maximize that output by partnering with an ecosystem. If you just look at some of the numbers that we found, which were pretty astonishing to me, we had 25,000 IoT startups globally, 2,000 just in India, 58,000 either AI-driven or AI value-creating startups in the world, 5,000 that we have in India. And they all work in very unique high-level areas. These are just a few that we found where a majority of them sort of fit in, which is like application development, data focus, personalizations, recommendation engine, and so on. 4,000 dedicated B2B big data startups. We have a few in the room today. 10,000 AR/VR startups in India, for over 500 in the 10,000 across the world, with over 500 in India. Again, for education, training, customer visualizations, there's a massive world of tech that we can achieve. And of course, blockchain. I know it's been spoken of slightly less in the last year with AI dominating the news, but we have almost 2,000 blockchain startups in the country working in smart contracts, NFTs, and a bunch of other blockchain services, especially valuable for your data, right?
So absolutely, thanks, Nikhil here. So I'd like to just quickly say that this. At least we have got that kind of an excitement in us that, deep tech is there. Okay, yeah, we have to really pick it up on it. And we've given you the larger picture, how really it is framing up our entire ecosystem as we move forward in this entire journey. Now, yes, I would, like to close that everything seems to be very, very good. But at the same time, there's also something which is very important, which is the governance we require to have ethics, so that things stay very well regulated, in control. So we would have our next session on the ethics in AI. A very interesting one. We have the three gentlemen, which Sandy has already mentioned. But yes, apart from that, before we move in that space, please do have scan the QR code. It's a very quick survey from our side, and we'd just love to hear your thoughts on there.
Yeah. We'll be sharing the results of the poll in the second half.
Yes, absolutely. Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks you so much.
See you.